Hey, super scientist. We're going to be talking about taxonomy, and we're on page 15 in your lab notebook for molecular biology. Go ahead and grab a highlighter because we're going to be highlighting a few things as we're going over this information. So as we begin, look at these two organisms. What do you think these are? So we have a wolf and we have a dog. How closely do you think these are related? Do you see any similarities or any differences? So taxonomy is looking at similarities and differences between different organisms. It's a method of biological classification. We know your stem bio means life. So when we're looking at biological classification, we're going to be thinking about this taxonomy of how things are related, what the relationships are between different organisms. So we're going to highlight a few things as we go over this information. So if you'll just grab your highlighter. First, what we're going to highlight is organize. So as scientists are going through this classification process and looking at how different organisms are related, they're going to be organizing that information. So basically, they're organizing thoughts and observations about different types of organisms into categories that we'll be looking at. So it's helpful for scientists to organize these living organisms to examine the similarities and differences and see how closely they are related to one another. So biological classification, bio means life, and taxonomy is looking at similarities and differences and seeing how closely related organisms are. So if you refer back to our picture of the wolf and the dog, this German Shepherd, how closely related are they? Well, they're both canines, right? They have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences between them. But you're going to be more likely to keep a German Shepherd, to keep a dog as a pet, as opposed to a wild wolf. So they do have similarities, but they do have inherent differences as well. So as scientists go through this classification, it helps them to construct family trees, evolutionary trees. And so as scientists are looking at the similarities and differences between organisms, like these proboscideans we have here, that helps them see how closely they are related to one another based on the similarities that they may exhibit. So we're looking at specifically relationships, and this is helping to construct evolutionary trees, such as the one that you see here in this picture, this big family tree, and showing the relationship between modern organisms and their ancestors. If you would highlight this word ancestor as well. So this helps to create a family tree. So if you look at this family tree of proboscideans, we have paleomastodons. Your stem paleo means ancient. Paleomastodons are similar to elephants, oddly enough, because elephants are modern day descendants of paleomastodons. And it's also similar to mammoths that you may be familiar with. Again, oddly enough, because mammoths are descendants of paleomastodons. So kind of the ancestral organism that these guys have in common is the paleomastodon, the ancient mastodon. So this is the ancestral proboscidean, this proboscidean family tree. But all these guys are very similar. They have similarities, but they also have inherent differences as well. So you can see they have the same basic kind of structure. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. Think about The Simpsons. You may or may not watch that show, but you're probably familiar with them. So we have Bart, Lisa, Maggie. How are they related? They're siblings. They're brothers and sisters, right? So they're going to have pretty close similarities because they have the same maternal, the same mother's DNA, and paternal, father's DNA. Homer and Marge Simpson, they're married. They come from different DNA sets, different parents. Marge has DNA that's similar to her father and mother, and Homer has DNA that's similar to his mother and father. So you can see that if you have siblings, brothers and sisters, you're going to have some similarities between them, as you'll also have similarities to your parents. But you may or may not have similarities to your cousins or your second cousins. Think about if you've ever gone to a family reunion. You may know some of the people there, but you may not know some of the people. You may look at them and be like, who is that? I've never seen them before in my life. But they're there because they are related to you, right? They're in your family in some capacity. But you're probably going to be more familiar with your direct family and with your cousins. And you probably will have some similarities with them because you may share more DNA. So let's look back at this proboscidean family tree. We have kind of the evolution of the mammoth and elephant here. Here's our Paleomastodon. The ancestor for the Paleomastodon, the Moratherium right here, is much smaller, but it still has that same body structure, right? It still looks very similar. If you look at the trunk for each of these organisms, it does have a trunk. They're very elephant-like. So we can see with the African elephant today that we're really familiar with. The shape of the tusks, a little bit different, but they still have tusks. And if you notice this, I think this is really cool. Think about for the mammoth and the elephant, they do have a mouth, right? But for the Gomptherium and the Paleomastodon, these guys, their mouth part is actually part of their trunk. It's really cool. Like the whole thing separates. It's got this big section that separates right here. And their tusks are smaller, but they have lower tusks and then they have these upper tusks as well. So they have lots of similarities and lots of differences because they have some DNA that's in common. So let's look at how you would classify, how you would key out Homo sapiens. So what are Homo sapiens? That's you and me, Homo sapiens, modern day humans. So we're going to look at this hierarchy of biological classification. So this triangle here, this little pyramid, is showing us how things are classified. So we're starting at the kingdom level. This is our largest level, so the base of the pyramid here. For humans, our kingdom is the animal kingdom. Humans are animals. We are not plants, we're not fungi, we're not bacteria, and we're not protists. We are animals. That's the kingdom that we fall in. So if you'll highlight Animalia. Our next step up is phylum. So we're looking at this orange tier on the pyramid. So the phylum for Homo sapiens is Chordata. So chordates are vertebrates. You've probably heard that word before. Vertebrates are organisms that have a backbone. There's over 50 other phyla included in this orange tier. Class. So we're stepping up to this yellow tier on our pyramid. So the class for mammals is Mammalia. That's our class for Homo sapiens. So mammals are going to have hair or fur. It may be a lot of hair. It might not. Like if you think about your arm hair, you've got a little bit of hair. You've got some hair on your head. But you may not have a ton of hair, certainly not fur like a cat or a dog would. Mammals are also going to be capable of producing milk for their young and usually give live birth. So you don't see humans like laying eggs, for example, nor do cats or dogs or horses or pandas. So those organisms are going to give live birth. For Homo sapiens, the order is Primates. So that means that we have some things in common with primates. We have some DNA similarities. Primates are going to have large brains and also a good sense of smell. Other primates you may be familiar with are gorillas, lemurs, monkeys. And I have a little picture here showing you some other organisms that are in the same order, this green tier, for Homo sapiens. The family for Homo sapiens is hominids, the hominidae. So the family for Homo sapiens, the hominids, are going to be capable of standing on two legs. So that's why you can see in this picture here, this kind of bipedal attribute. No tail, and hominids are very social. So that doesn't necessarily mean you like to talk a lot, but you may live in family units, for example. You live with your family. The parents take care of their young, and in general, are surrounded by people, for the example of Homo sapiens. So if you look at apes or chimpanzees as well, they have that similarity too, that they're surrounded by their own species. So the family species, or the family hierarchy, we're here in this blue section on our pyramid. The genus for Homo sapiens is the second to top tier of our pyramid. So our genus is Homo, and that's why Homo sapiens, for modern day humans, that's why Homo is right there, because that's our genus level. And that's going to be modern humans and also our extinct ancestors, and that includes Neanderthal. So when you think about cavemen, that's probably what you're thinking about. You may picture something like from the movie Ice Age, for example. So those are our extinct ancestors. And this is a picture, a reconstruction of what a Neanderthal would look like. And this is kind of showing you the comparison of human to Neanderthal. You can see very, very close similarities between ancestors and modern day humans. And our species level is sapiens. So sapiens is specifically referring to just modern day humans. So not talking about Neanderthals anymore, but just modern day, present day humans. That's the top of our pyramid, so our little purple section there. So organisms that are in the same species are capable of reproducing, are capable of reproduction. So pause the video and take just a moment and answer the questions you have on this section on page 15, and then you can resume the video for the last section. Our last section is looking at birds and bats and the similarities between them. So think about what they may have in common. You've got a picture of a bat here, a picture of a bird. This is a bird's wing and a bat's wing. So they both are capable of flying, right? They have analogous structures in common because they are both capable of flying, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're related, right? So birds and bats both can fly. They both have wings. They have those structures that allow for them to fly, but they are not related. So why are they not in the same species if they both can fly? Because they have genetic differences. They have differences that allow them to be separate species, but they both just happen to be able to fly. And you can look at the structure of these organisms. Here's the structure for the bat's wing. You can see like a bat's wing is very thin, and you can see the structure of these long bones here that are the phalanges. And the bird does not have those long structures. You've got a couple of them indicated here, but it definitely is not as large as bats. So they both can fly. Thin skin on the bat's wings. And what do you have on birds' wings? You've got lots of feathers, right? Bats don't have the feathers. They're going to have a little bit of fur, a little bit of hair on them. So they have, although they can both fly, they have genetic differences that allow them to not be in the same family. So although birds and bats both can fly, they're not in the same family because their anatomy, their body structure, and the way that their cells and their tissues are structured allows for them to be so different that they have unique characteristics unto themselves. So they are different species and they're not in the same family because of their unique anatomical structures. So go ahead and take just a minute and answer the questions down at the bottom of page 15.